They say every town has a road best left untraveled. In our case, it is not just a warning, it is a rule for survival. The job posting promised good pay, quiet nights, and a fresh start. That was all I needed to accept the offer. My name is Lucas Bray. I was 26, recently out of work, and desperate to rebuild my life. That offer led me to the Red Road Maintenance Outpost, buried deep where two forgotten highways meet in the middle of the Colorado wilderness. The man who handed me the keys spoke just one sentence: "Keep the lights on and never walk past the gravel." I thought it was just local superstition. It was not. There are things tied to that road, things that do not belong in this world. If you are offered a night shift job at the Red Road, run. Run as far as you can. I found the ad on a corkboard inside a gas station outside of Waverly County. It was printed on yellow paper, hand-cut, the ink slightly faded. Night watch position available, immediate start. Competitive pay. Housing provided. There was no company logo, no contact name, just a number and an address scribbled beneath it. At the time, I was 2 days into sleeping in my car and 3 weeks since my last paycheck. I had nothing left to lose. The directions were vague. The GPS stopped updating an hour before I reached the listed coordinates. The road narrowed until it was more dirt than pavement, winding between stretches of dead pine and rocky hills. I would have turned around if my gas gauge had not been nearly on empty. Just before sunset, I reached a lonely outpost. A squat concrete building sat beside a gravel lot. A flickering bulb swung above the rusted door. There were no signs, no nameplates, no hint of anything official. A man stood out front, arms crossed. He wore a dark blue uniform, dusty and faded, with a stitched patch that read, "Ferris." He looked like someone who had not had a full night of sleep in months. As I parked and stepped out, he watched me with tired but alert eyes. "You the one for the night shift?" he asked. I nodded, unsure what else to say. He handed me a set of keys. "Your bunk's around the back. Lights are automatic. You only got 3 jobs. Keep the outpost locked at all times. Monitor traffic every hour. And never, under any circumstance, cross the gravel onto the Red Road." I raised an eyebrow. Red Road. Ferris pointed past the lot to a long, narrow stretch of asphalt. It shimmered faintly, like oil on water. "You will know it when you see it. That line beyond the gravel? That is the Red Road. Stay off it." The outpost was colder than it looked. Inside, the walls were painted a dull beige, the floors concrete, and the air smelled faintly of burnt coffee and mildew. Ferris gave me a brief tour. There was a desk with 2 monitors, one showing camera feeds of the road and lot, the other running a looping text log. A logbook lay beside them, mostly empty. A fold-out cot was shoved into the corner, already made. A small kitchenette sat near the back, stocked with canned soup, instant coffee, and a microwave that hummed too loudly. "I will be back in the morning," Ferris said. "If nothing happens, just log it. If something does, keep the doors locked and the lights on. That is it." "What kind of something?" I asked. He looked me over with a grim, unreadable expression. "If you hear knocking, do not open the door. If you hear your own voice coming from outside, do not answer. And if you see someone on the Red Road, do not help them." I gave a half laugh, expecting him to smile. He did not. As his taillights disappeared into the dark, a silence fell that was not normal. It was not the kind of quiet you get in remote areas. It was the kind that pressed against your ears like water. Every small sound felt louder. The creak of the chair, the hum of the microwave, even the gentle scratch of my own breath. The Red Road sat just beyond the gravel. It did not look like much in the dim security lights, but it did seem to absorb light differently than the dirt lot. The cameras gave it a faint, reddish tint that made my skin crawl. 11 o'clock rolled by with no event. Midnight the same. I made entries into the log every hour as instructed. At 1 o'clock, I made a cup of instant coffee and stood by the window. Something about that stretch of road felt like it was watching me. At 1:30, the monitors blinked. All of them. For less than a second, they turned black, then came back. In that flash, I saw a shape standing at the edge of the gravel. When the feed returned, it was gone. I checked the window. The gravel was undisturbed. The lot was empty. The camera feed was steady again. I rubbed my eyes, blaming the caffeine, the stress, or maybe just the mental wear of silence. Still, I turned the lock on the door a second time and kept the shotgun Ferris had left within arm's reach. By 2 o'clock, I had nearly convinced myself it had been a trick of light or fatigue. Then the knock came. It was not loud. It was 3 soft taps. Too soft, given the thickness of the door. It did not echo through the building. It just arrived. I froze. The knock came again. Then a voice. My voice. Lucas. It is me. I forgot my badge. Can you open up for a second? My blood turned to ice. No one knew my name. Ferris had not said it. I had never told anyone I had accepted the job. The voice spoke again. Identical to mine. Lucas. Come on. It is cold out here. I backed away from the door. Whatever was out there was not human. The voice at the door went silent. I held my breath for several seconds, staring at the knob. It did not move again. No footsteps, no retreat. Just silence. Thick, unnatural silence. I moved back toward the monitor and watched the camera trained on the front door. There was no one there. The gravel was untouched. But the shadow in the corner of the screen was new. It stood tall, longer than any human frame should be. For a moment, I thought it might be a glitch until it moved. It did not walk. It glided. Slowly, it drifted across the lot toward the road. When it reached the edge of the red road, it stopped. Then it vanished, like it had never been there. I waited for the sun. The outpost windows turned orange at 5:30 in the morning. Ferris returned around 6. I met him at the door with hollow eyes and 1,000 questions. I heard myself, I said. It knocked on the door. Used my voice. Ferris nodded slowly. They do that sometimes. The road listens. If it wants you, it will call with a voice you trust. What the hell is this place? I asked. He sighed and took a long sip from his thermos. You will not believe me if I tell you. Just follow the rules. They are not negotiable. I should have left that morning. Packed up and driven until the trees changed shape. But something rooted me. Maybe it was pride. Maybe curiosity. Or maybe the road had already started pulling at the corners of my mind. The next night was worse. It began earlier. 10:45. The red road pulsed with a faint glow I had not noticed the night before. I stood at the window longer than I should have, transfixed. It did not shine. It pulsed. Like a vein. At 11:15, a man appeared at the edge of the gravel. He wore a white suit, hands in his pockets, face obscured by the low camera angle. He stood completely still. The logbook lay open in front of me. I wrote down the time, his appearance, and waited. He never crossed the gravel. Never moved. Just stood and stared. At 12 o'clock sharp, the lights inside the outpost flickered. The monitors dimmed again. And then, the man in white was gone. The logbook entry ended with one sentence. He did not move, but I think he saw me. 3 nights passed without a major incident. I stayed quiet, eyes on the screens, ears tuned to every creak and rustle. The red road seemed less active. But something was changing. I began to dream of it. Each night, I found myself walking down the red road in my sleep. I saw no creatures, no figures, only endless black trees on either side and a faint red glow under my feet. It stretched on, infinitely straight. There was no end, no beginning, only the feeling that something was walking behind me, always just far enough to remain unseen. By the 5th night, the dreams followed me into the daylight. I would blink and see the road outside the outpost window, even when I was off duty. I started to hear the low hum, the one it made right before things appeared, when I was sitting at the diner in town. Once, I looked into a spoon and saw my reflection blink a moment too late. I called Ferris. I think I am losing it, I told him. No, he said. You are adjusting. To what? To what the road is. He paused, then added something he had not said before. It is not a path. It is a boundary, a bleeding edge, and it is always hungry. The 7th night started the same way they always did, Dim sunlight fading behind the trees, the hum of the outpost's lights flickering on one by one, and that familiar sinking feeling in my stomach as I watched the red road begin its unnatural glow. But something felt different this time. I could not place it at first, just a heaviness in the air like before a thunderstorm. Everything tasted like copper. The air was too still. At 10:50, the security monitor flickered again. Not fully, just enough to make the colors warp. I leaned in, watching the north-facing camera. There was movement. A person. Not gliding, not flickering, not warped. Just walking. She appeared like any normal traveler might. Short, maybe in her 20s, long dark hair, hands shoved into the pockets of a gray hoodie. Her jeans were torn at the knees. She looked cold. Human. That was what scared me the most. She stepped off the red road and stopped just before the edge of the gravel, just outside the line Ferris had warned me about. Her face was pale but not unnatural. She looked tired, not dead. And when she looked toward the camera, I saw eyes that were afraid, not empty, not malicious. Just afraid. I stared for a full minute, waiting for her to do something strange, twitch, flicker, melt, or vanish. But she did not. She just stood there, occasionally glancing behind her like she was being followed. Then she raised her hand and waved toward the camera. That was new. I hesitated. My hand hovered above the intercom switch, the one Ferris told me never to use. I told myself I would not say anything. I would follow the rules. But then she spoke. Not through the intercom. Her voice carried through the cold night air and came in clearly through the small cracks in the outpost's sealed window. "Please," she said, her voice breaking on the word. "They are coming." Two thoughts collided in my mind. The first was the rules. The sacred rules. Do not talk. Do not look too long. Do not engage. The second thought was older, deeper, maybe more human. She looked like someone who needed help. I grabbed the microphone. "What are you?" I asked, my voice shaking. She stepped closer, but never onto the gravel. Her foot stopped exactly at the border, like she knew. She looked directly at the camera again and said, "My name is Lacey. I was like you. I took the job." My heart dropped. "I lasted 5 nights," she continued. "Then I went outside." I slammed the switch off and backed away from the desk. My fingers trembled. When I dared to look again, she was crying. "They do not let you leave, Lucas." The sound of my name knocked the breath from my lungs. "You are being watched. The more you see them, the more they know you. The road remembers faces." The monitors glitched again, just for a flash, but when they returned, Lacey was no longer alone. Behind her, standing on the red road, were shapes. Dozens of them. Some were tall and slender, others crawling on limbs too many to count. All of them still. Silent. Watching. "They follow the curious," she said. "They follow the kind. You cannot open the door, Lucas. Not for me. Not for anyone." "Then why are you here?" I asked, forgetting my own rules. She lowered her head. "Because you are next. And someone should tell you the truth." For several minutes after that, nothing happened. The lights buzzed overhead. The monitors showed the gravel lot. The road. The silent crowd of things standing just outside the line. And then, one by one, the figures behind her started to move. They did not rush. They floated. They rolled. They unfolded. They crawled. But they moved forward, toward the gravel. "Back away!" I shouted, not even using the mic. But Lacey just stood there, still at the border. "They cannot come unless invited," she whispered. "But once they are close enough, they whisper. They show you things. And they wait." I grabbed the logbook and scribbled furiously. 10:59 p.m. Human female identified herself as Lacey. Claims to be former employee. Warned of invasion by figures on the red road. Visual confirmation of approximate 12 to 14 entities behind her. No signs of hallucination. I looked up again. She was still there, but her eyes had changed. Not evil. Not demonic. Just empty. The tears had dried. The skin around her lips was cracked now, her hands twitching. Her voice dropped to a whisper I felt in my skull. "I thought I was doing the right thing, warning you. But I am not here to warn you. I am here to finish what the road started. Her foot stepped forward. Onto the gravel. Just a toe. But it was enough. The emergency lights kicked in, red sirens bathing the outpost in a swirling pulse. The road outside responded in kind. It brightened, deepened. The edges of the road seemed to expand like blood soaking through cloth. And then came the sound. It was not a scream. It was not a roar. It was something old. Something buried. The sound of 1,000 mouths chewing through walls. I backed into the corner with the shotgun, pointing it toward the door. The girl, Lacey, took one more step. And then she dissolved. Her body did not collapse. It did not bleed. It simply fell apart like ash, as though she had never existed. The moment she did, the figures behind her stopped moving. They had been waiting for her to break the rule. Now it was my turn. The emergency lights threw twisted shadows across the cramped outpost, the red pulsing wash painting everything with a burning urgency. The steady hum of electronics shifted to a low, uneasy drone. I held the shotgun tighter than I'd ever held anything in my life. My breath came in shallow bursts, freezing in the stale air. Outside, the red road was no longer just a line on the ground. It had become something alive, something ancient and waiting. The blood-red glow seeped outward, thick and heavy, like veins crawling beneath the gravel. It wasn't just light, it was a pulse. A heartbeat. I could feel it through the soles of my boots, vibrating up through the floor. Lacey was gone, dissolved into nothingness like ash scattered by a bitter wind, but the figures behind her remained. Their shapes flickered between stillness and slow, unnatural motion. Their eyes, or whatever passed for eyes, burned faintly in the darkness, watching me. Patient. Waiting. I knew then that the warnings weren't just words. They were rules. The thin membrane between this world and something else was fragile, and I had just cracked it. The road remembers faces. The words echoed in my mind. I glanced at the logbook, its pages smeared from my shaking hands. I had written everything down, every detail, like a record in case I didn't make it through the night. A sound caught my attention, faint at first but growing, like distant whispers carried on the wind. Not words, exactly, but something ancient. Like the earth itself was murmuring secrets meant only for the lost. My skin prickled. Then came a new sensation, pressure in my temples, a slow creeping weight behind my eyes. The figures outside weren't just watching. They were reaching inside my mind. I forced my eyes back to the screen. The camera feed showed the road twisting, the red glow expanding unevenly, like veins branching out beneath flesh. I could see small cracks forming in the gravel, tiny fissures glowing faintly from within. The edge of the road was bleeding something dark and thick, something alive. A sudden, sharp knock at the door made me jump. My heart lurched so violently I thought it might break free from my chest. I raised the shotgun, every muscle taut. The knock came again, slower this time. Deliberate. Lucas. The voice was barely a whisper, but it was unmistakable. Open the door. It was Lacey, or something wearing her face. I shook my head, trying to clear the fog creeping into my thoughts. The rules screamed inside me, do not open the door. Do not invite them in. But the voice was pleading now, desperate. Please. You don't understand. I'm still here. I'm trapped too. The road, it's a vein beneath the world. It feeds on fear, on life, on hope. I swallowed hard, trying to steady my trembling hands. It needs you, Lucas. It needs you to finish what I started. Behind the voice, the whispers rose into a chorus, discordant and overwhelming. It was like being caught in the middle of 1,000 broken songs. The door rattled under a new force, like something on the other side was pushing. The thin walls seemed to groan under the pressure. I slammed my shoulder against the door, holding it shut, but my resolve was slipping. The shotgun felt heavy, almost useless against the tide pressing in. What was this road? Why did it feed on people like me? I thought back to the first night. The strange shimmer on the road's surface. The way the lights flickered in impossible patterns. The quiet hum beneath it all. The road wasn't just a path. It was a wound, a channel to something deep and terrible, pulsing beneath the surface of reality. Suddenly, a sharp pain exploded behind my eyes, and the world tilted. I stumbled back, barely catching myself on the desk. The monitors flickered violently. For a brief moment, I saw a glimpse of another place. A dark cavern beneath the earth, veins of glowing red stone pulsing like a heart. Shadows danced just beyond the glow, faces twisted in eternal scream. And in that place, the road began to move, not as a line, but as a living thing. I closed my eyes, trying to push the vision away, but the whispers filled my head, clawing at my thoughts. "Join us," they hissed. "You cannot resist. You are the vein." I gritted my teeth, forcing myself to stand. My hands shook violently, but I gripped the shotgun tighter and stepped toward the window. Outside, the figures began to close in. They didn't run or rush. They drifted forward with a terrible inevitability. Then I saw it, a crack forming beneath one figure's foot. The gravel fractured like brittle glass, revealing the glowing vein beneath. The figure bent down, touching the fissure, and I felt a sudden pull, like an invisible thread tugging at my very soul. "Stop!" I shouted, but the words sounded hollow even to me. The red glow surged, and the road's pulse quickened. It was a living artery, drawing power from something I could barely comprehend. I realized then that the road was no accident. It was a trap, a snare set for people like me, keepers of the line, watchers who became prey. A sudden cold swept through the room, like ice water flooding my veins. I turned to the door again, now cracked and splintering. The emergency lights flickered. The siren's howl grew louder, almost drowning out the whispers. I raised the shotgun one last time. "Come on," I whispered to myself. "If this is the end, then I'm not going quietly." The door burst open, and the darkness poured in. The door exploded inward with a violent crack, shards of splintered wood flying like shrapnel. Cold darkness surged through the threshold like a tide of shadow, swallowing the dim red glow of the emergency lights. I fired the shotgun blindly into the blackness, the blast echoing like thunder in the confined space. The recoil slammed into my shoulder, but there was no sound of impact. No scream. No resistance. Only silence. A heavy, suffocating silence. My heart hammered so loud I was sure it would burst from my chest. I spun around, searching for any sign of movement. The monitors, battered and flickering, showed only static now, the cameras dead or disconnected. Then, out of the black, a shape emerged. Slowly, a silhouette human, no, something else. Its limbs stretched impossibly long, fingers curling like claws. Its eyes glowed faint red, the same color as the road's pulse beneath us. "Lucas," the voice came again, but now it was layered with something cold and hollow. "You are the vein now. The road chooses." I raised the shotgun again, but my hands faltered. The figure stepped closer, and the floor beneath us seemed to ripple, the vein beneath the gravel pulsing faster. A sudden wave of images crashed into my mind, visions of every watcher who had ever taken the job, their faces burned into the road like scars. Each one broken, trapped, feeding the pulse of that terrible vein beneath the earth. "You cannot fight it," the thing whispered. "You will become part of the road's memory. Its keeper, its prisoner." A crushing weight seized my chest, squeezing the air from my lungs. My vision blurred, the room twisting and folding around me. And then, just as I felt myself slipping into the darkness, I remembered something Lacey said. "They cannot come unless invited." With the last flicker of strength, I gripped the shotgun and shouted, "No!" I took a step back, away from the door, away from the darkness, away from the road. I refused to cross that line. The thing recoiled, surprised. The pulse beneath us slowed, flickered. "Not yet," it hissed. "But soon." I slammed the door shut with all my might, bolting it. The emergency lights flickered, then died, plunging the outpost into blackness. For a moment, only the pounding of my heart filled the void. And then the road outside began to fade, the red glow shrinking until it was just a faint scar in the earth. I collapsed against the wall, breath ragged, mind racing. I was still here, still human, still alive. But I knew the road would never forget me. The vein beneath the road was patient, and it was waiting for the next watcher to take the job, waiting for the next soul to walk the line. And I was its newest memory. The door slammed shut behind me, locking out the darkness for now, but the weight of what I'd seen pressed heavy on my chest. The pulse beneath the road slowed to a faint heartbeat, but it had not stopped. I knew the truth now. The red road was not just a path. It was a wound in reality, a living vein that fed on those who guarded it. Each watcher was a prisoner and a sacrifice, a memory etched into the earth itself. I was no longer just an observer. I was part of the road's story. I reached for the radio, my fingers trembling, and spoke into the empty channel. This is Lucas. To whoever takes this job next, do not trust what you see. Do not break the rules. The road remembers faces. It waits for the invitation, and it does not forget. The static hissed in response, and I knew no one was listening. Outside, the red road pulsed faintly through the night, like a scar that refused to heal. I stepped away from the window and sat down, the shotgun resting across my lap. I was trapped in this outpost, the latest watcher caught in the vein beneath the earth. And as the darkness crept closer, I understood the final truth. There is no escaping the road. Only waiting for the next soul to walk the line. Waiting to claim another watcher, another memory. The red road is endless. And so am I.